Hi, everybody. Welcome to Wrestling with Wrestling for another week. With me, as always, is my co-host, the great Doc Gregory, the greatest referee in all of independent wrestling, and just a darn nice guy. How's it going, Doc?
Doing really well, and actually, I will be stepping back into the stripes this weekend, Sunday, June the 22nd, up at the Frankfurt High School this weekend, and I am going to be refereeing the main event, and special enforcer for that match is going to be none other than Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle. We not only had Kurt Angle on the show, we have Shane Douglas on the show, we have Sanjay Dutt on the show, we have Rhino on the show. It is going to be an epic performance. The only part that I don't like is it's a Sunday. And I got to get up early on Mondays, so it's going to be hell week for me. But it's to me, I cannot pass up this opportunity. I've met Kurt Angle before. Matter of fact, I've worked with the other three guys before. I've never worked with Kurt Angle, but met him. And this is the reason why I want to go to the show, because I want that opportunity to work with him. He's going to be special enforcer. I'm the inside referee. I wonder how that's going to end up. We'll see.
You don't think that...
Yeah, that's this Sunday. Elite Pro Wrestling Alliance. You can find them on Facebook. You can find them on YouTube. They're a great wrestling promotion out there, independent. They're making big waves in the business, and I would recommend if you're around the area, and that's in Frankfurt, that's in West Virginia. If you're around the area, you got to check out one of their shows. It is awesome.
I agree. I've been to an Elite show before, and it was a great experience. Elite is a really they're an indie promotion that has their shit together, and they put on really good shows.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got the best referee that they could possibly have.
Well, they do search out the number one talents, and that's how it happened. They saw me on an independent show that just happened. The promoters were working that independent show, and they saw me work, and they came right up to me in the middle of the show backstage and asked me if I would be interested in working for them. And I agreed to it because I wanted that work, and I went up, and the first time I stepped into the locker room, that's exactly what I thought. I was like, above all the different wrestling promotions I've ever worked for, this one has their shit together.
Yep. Yeah, they put on a really good show.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's talk about this episode of Raw from this week because. Well, first of all, let me ask you, Doc. We don't usually talk about this before we've actually gone through the show, but I want to see where we stand on this show. What did you think of Raw? Just general impression.
I thought I fell asleep after the first three matches, and I had to try to start watching it again on Tuesday, and again, I fell asleep. I actually just finished watching it about an hour ago, just to cap it all off. I think together the first three matches were good, but the finishes were bullshit. I'm like, really? You got to go. Let's give it. Can we get a decisive win here, please?
Yeah, I actually I agree with you about the finishes. I think 3 like DQ finishes in a row was a little too much. Although like I understand why they did it, but really after that segment, like those 3 matches, which other than the finishes I thought were pretty good. Man, this was one of the shittiest episodes of Raw I've seen in a long time. I mean, I liked the opening stuff. I liked the stuff with the Shield with Ambrose. I thought that was great. I loved the Ziggler match. And I thought the Battle Royal, at least the end of the Battle Royal, was really good. But pretty much everything else was just like, oh, God, what are you people thinking? Yeah. And there was some stuff that we'll get to when we go through it here. That was just horrible. That was some of the stupidest shit that I've seen that they've done on Raw in a long time.
Sure.
So anyway, yeah, we'll talk about that. But they're live from Cleveland, Ohio this week, and the show opened with everybody, basically the whole roster, standing on the stage, and they did this. All the time last year when they were building up the Authority, and they haven't done it for a while. But now the whole roster's standing on the stage, and then Triple H and Stephanie come out, and they kind of address the locker room, and they run down Daniel Bryan, and which I actually like because it reminds people that Daniel Bryan exists, and it keeps things sort of on the back burner in case he does come back soon. That he'll have there'll be something for him to do as soon as he gets back, which I think is good. And then they announced that there's going to be a battle royal on the show tonight for a spot in the WWE title ladder match at the pay-per-view. And the battle royal will basically include everybody on the stage who hasn't already qualified for the match, except for Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, and John Cena. Ambrose and Reigns aren't in because they're being punished for going against the Authority, and Cena's not in the battle royal because he has a separate match that, if he wins, gets him into the ladder match, and that is a stretcher match with Kane, which is the main event. What do you think of these whole having everybody on stage listening to the Authority thing? I'm not sure if I'm too crazy about that.
Yeah, I usually don't care for that. It's like to say that every wrestler never has a beef with each other. It's like, if I was standing side by side, you got Seth Rollins on one side, you got John Cena, the #1 boy in the company, on the other side, what would prevent you from going after him? I mean, you obviously are a heel. He's a babyface. Why do you stand in peace at the top of the stage while the Authority speaks? I mean, like, to me, it just should have turned into a big-ass rumble up on the stage.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, it's like they kind of want to have it both ways, because on the one hand, they don't really present the show like it's any sort of a sport. You get the feeling that, like, people will just walk out to the ring and make their own matches. Like, they're not athletes who are having any kind of scheduled contests. Shit just kind of happens. But then at the same time, they all line up on the stage all together like they're one big happy team. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, which is it? Are they athletes who compete with each other and they don't really hold a grudge? Or are they like, outlaws in the Old West and they're constantly trying to kill each other? You can't really do both at the same time.
Yeah, I don't care. I don't care for that kind of stuff. I don't want to see. To me, it's always you uphold kayfabe, even on television, even more so.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and plus the other thing is, I mean, the only thing that really got accomplished from it was they made 2 matches that they could have made. They could have just had Michael Cole say, the main event tonight is an ambulance match between John Cena and Kane. Plus, we're going to have a battle royal to determine another participant in the Money in the Bank WWE title ladder match. And there you go. Everything.
Yeah, instead they want to come on and get on the mic and continue to tell you that Daniel Bryan is a B+ player. Now, I've read articles on this, and I tend to agree on this. Why the WWE continues to call their rosters B+ players is beyond me, because to me, there will be people every time you say it that might stop and go, you might be right. I mean, even myself, I think Daniel Bryan, although he's an excellent wrestler, he's not a B+ player. I think he's A, but, I mean, it's just one of those things where, okay, so he's a smaller guy, so let's pick on him a little bit. And you can ruin a man's career by making him look bad constantly. I'm looking at you, Sandow.
Yeah. I guess at least Sandow got off relatively easy this week. He didn't have anything too terribly humiliating. He just got dumped from that battle royal in like 10 seconds.
That was an easy work week for me.
Yeah. So let's get to this first match, because speaking of guys who aren't really being used to their full potential, the first match was Dolph Ziggler versus Seth Rollins. And Ziggler, despite the fact that he's been on a losing streak and he hasn't been given anything to do in terms of storyline for months, is still so over with the live crowds. Every week, whenever he's in the ring, they're behind him 100%. They're totally responding to everything he does. He works really great as a babyface, which, given what a sarcastic, smart-ass heel he was for so long, is kind of impressive. And there's a big "Let's Go Ziggler" chant during this match, and there's also a "You Sold Out" chant at one point directed at Seth Rollins, which I thought was cool. Shows that he's getting over as a heel. And I thought this was a really good match. It's a really fast-paced match. Both guys did some good work, and the match ended with a disqualification when Dean Ambrose runs in and jumps on Rollins. And what I loved about that was no entrance music. Dean Ambrose, like we were talking about last time, they play everybody's entrance music, and the guy, it's like they get their entrance for a run-in now. Not this week. Ambrose fucking ran in. You didn't even know he was there until he was already on top of Rollins, and it was awesome. And then Ambrose...
They saw our show last week. That's probably what it was.
I hope so. Hey, anyone on WWE Creative who is watching this, please feel free to steal whatever ideas you think sound good.
Hey, they just released, actually, some people from Creative, so you never know.
Yeah, that's true. When they released their... They released their head writer, I think.
Yeah.
And apparently Vince had more of a hands-on role in booking Raw this week, which kind of makes me worry. I mean, because I'm one of those guys that always says, the show was better like 15, 20 years ago when it was just Vince and Pat Patterson booking it. But after this week, I don't know. Maybe Vince not booking is a good thing. So Ambrose, after the match, after Rollins gets out of the ring, he cuts another what I thought was really good, short, intense promo, challenging Rollins. And then Triple H interrupts Ambrose and really, I thought, kind of kills his heat.
Yeah, makes fun of him.
Yeah, makes fun of him from the Titantron and books him in a match with Bad News Barrett. Overall, I thought it was a great segment. I thought Ziggler and Rollins did good. I thought Ambrose... I thought the run-in was great with no entrance music. I thought Ambrose is just fucking killing it the last couple weeks. It's like the pissed off, like crazy babyface who was out for revenge against the guy who screwed him over. I think that the whole thing was great. Triple H, not taking him seriously and kind of goofing on him on the Titantron doesn't make any sense. Unless you're Triple H, I guess, and you just want to get over on everybody. But
that's Triple H.
But I thought it was a really good way to start the show. And it goes right into the next match, which is Ambrose versus Bad News Barrett.
Well, my thing about I thought Ziggler and Seth was a top-notch match, and I even accepted the ending because Dean Ambrose is angry with him. My thing is the commentators constantly pushing to you that Dean Ambrose might be off his rocker. I'm like, I think I would rather look at him as an angry man of what happened to him, but eccentric. He's not crazy. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah. Well, then that's a problem with the commentators in general, I think, is whether they mean to or not, and whether they're conscious that they're doing it or not. A lot of the time, they react to what's happening in the ring like it's not really that impressive to them. Like they laugh at guys, like they belittle them, like talking about, well, Dean Ambrose is crazy. Crazy is kind of a belittling, dismissive thing to say to somebody, especially when they're fucking rocking like Ambrose is. I mean, he has just been so good the last few weeks. Or they laugh at shit that happens in the ring that's not funny. Or JBL will say so-and-so is fun to watch. Like, I would fine him $10,000 every time he said that. Don't ever say it's fun to watch. They're beating each other up. It's a fight. Would you look at guys in a boxing ring punching each other in the head and go, boy, this is fun to watch?
Well, I'm having a blast. This is better than the fucking Mastodon at Disney World. This is awesome.
Yeah. He just knocked that dude's tooth out. Oh,
Woo!
Like, you're not the drunks in the front row. You're the commentators. But yeah, I agree. I think they should be putting over Dean as like dangerous, and not dangerous because he's crazy, but because he's fucking determined.
He's methodical. He's a thinking wrestler. His mind's always working, no matter if he's taking the beating, getting his lumps. His mind is working, and you see that in his face that he is thinking about what he should do to win this outcome.
Yeah, he's tremendous. He's tremendous. He of all of the three guys in the Shield since the breakup, I think he has come on the best for me. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously they're going with Roman Reigns as their next big guy, but I mean, Dean has just been killing it. So anyway, there's a count out because Seth Rollins comes back and distracts Dean Ambrose, and they fight on the outside, and Barrett wins by a count out. But then after the decision, Ambrose comes back in the ring, and he lays out Barrett with a clothesline, and he hits him with his finish. So it looks good on Dean. I don't know if I'm too crazy about the Intercontinental Champion having to do that. That just goes
But
to show, like,
it does create. I mean, everybody remembers a guy named Stone Cold Steve Austin, that anti-hero. I
oh
think
yeah,
I honestly think Dean Ambrose can fit into that role. Not the same, but that same role where, if he was distracted and screwed out of his match, why wouldn't he come back and attack the guy that won the match? It's not fair. I would have beat you, but because of this guy, I didn't get to beat you.
yeah, I agree. I actually had the same thought, just based on how he's been booked the last couple weeks, based on his personality and just I think if they bring him up the right way and they get him over, and I think Ambrose could be. I think he could be a top guy, like not just a guy you throw into the main event one month just to give their other guys a month off. I mean, I think he could be a fucking top guy. He's great, and he's gotten so over as a babyface. I mean, they cheer him like crazy.
Well, it only takes a bigger asshole.
Yeah, but I mean, he could, like, CM Punk is gone. Daniel Bryan might be gone. He's at least gone for the next little while. I mean, Ambrose could very easily fill that spot as, like, the smaller, fiery, excited, like, anti-establishment type of guy who's, like, thrilling to watch in the ring. And yeah, he would be on the top of my list if I had any influence at all in WWE.
But so far on Raw, we got first match was Rollins and Ziggler as a disqualification because of Ambrose. On the second match, we got a count-out victory because of Seth Rollins on Ambrose and Bad News Barrett. So that's how we started Raw. To me, not a very good start.
No, well, the two kind of shitty finishes in a row isn't good, I don't think. And actually, there's a third one coming up.
But wait, there's more.
Yeah. Because, I mean, it's like, if you want to protect guys, that's great. Don't fucking put them in matches against each other. Like, why? If you want to protect people, then don't put them against each other where either one of them has to lose or you have to do a bullshit finish. I don't see. They've got fucking 1 million guys on the roster, even after the cuts. Like, I don't really see how this is that difficult.
In boxing and MMA, when someone is scheduled to fight another person, you do not see them come in contact, except for interviews and weigh-ins, with that other person until that fight. And to me, that's the way the wrestling is. Once a pay-per-view is booked, those two wrestlers really should not come into contact with each other until the pay-per-view.
Yeah, and I mean, it used to be done that way for the most part. Unless it was, like, in a controlled situation where, like, they'd have, like, a two-person interview with a moderator or something, or like a press conference type of thing, or a contract signing. They weren't allowed to just run into each other's matches and beat the shit out of each other. They there was, at least they were supposed to not touch each other until the big show. So next up, go ahead.
I tend to think they don't seem. I think they don't think they're competing against WCW anymore. I'm like, there's no need to give the top-notch matches on your wrestling show anymore because you have no competition. So knock it off. Like, give us a main event that we're looking forward to. But the other, it would be nice for some of my friends to have enhancement jobs to make your stars look good.
Yeah, and you don't have to go back to the way it was in 1993, where, like, every match was an enhancement match. But every match doesn't have to be a fucking house show main event either. I mean, what you said about WCW, I feel the same way about the way they obsess about the ratings. It's like, I mean, if you look at the cable ratings every week, even though, like, the ratings for Raw now aren't nearly as big as they used to be, they're not anywhere close to how they were, like, during the Austin era. But they're still, yeah, but they're still almost always some of the top-rated shows on cable every week. Like, Raw is often the #1 show on cable, and
not like they'd ever let you forget that.
No, so the show is still really successful, and they have no competition. Like, there is no other wrestling show. I mean, TNA doesn't really count. I mean,
Who?
TNA is lucky if it pulls a 1 rating every week. TNA doesn't count.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. There's this other company. They run shows out of Universal Studios in Orlando. They're called TNA.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Apparently Jeff Hardy works for them, and he's got, like, a weird mask gimmick now. I don't know. Anyway,
Not Willow. Not Willow.
Yeah, his old indie gimmick. He's
Oh,
doing
yeah,
that in
it's an old indie gimmick. Wow, it's nice to see he can be reborn. I mean, because honestly, Jeff Hardy was. Man, I almost fell asleep actually saying his name.
That's how you know. That's how you know TNA is just fucking basically they know they're bullshit because Jeff Hardy came into the office one day and said, "Hey, can I just do my old indie gimmick?" And they were like, "Sure, whatever."
What the hell?
Just you know what? Dress the same, act the same. Just put the mask on.
We'll even tell people that it's you.
Well, exactly. We'll even tell people it's you. Who fucking cares? It's TNA. Nobody even watches it. So yeah, I think the way they freak out about ratings is the same way. It's like, dude, you won. You know, nobody but you cares about the ratings. So anyway, back now. Here's where what I think is what makes this for me like an outstandingly bad episode of Raw, despite some of the bright spots. This whole thing backstage with Roman Reigns and Vickie. Even before we got to the punchline, I thought this was stupid. Roman finds Vickie backstage, and she's on a coffee run for Triple H and Stephanie, and he kind of, catches her and talks to her and distracts her and says, hey, did you get sweetener for the coffee? They're going to want sweetener for the coffee. And while he's alone with the coffee, he like doses the coffee with something.
He pulls a Uri Geller move where he turns his back and does something that you don't know what the fuck he's doing, and then he turns around and is like, I can bend the spoon.
yeah, exactly. Wow. And then James Randi comes in and is like, no.
I love you, James Randi.
James Randi should be the fucking guest star on Raw one of these weeks.
But it would take him 20 minutes to get down the ringside.
Yeah. They could just have him like under the stage and have him get sprung up by the thing Rey Mysterio used to do. Just like, throw him up.
He would break his hip, dude.
Yeah, that's probably a bad idea. But anyway, yeah, Roman Reigns basically he pulls like a jackass prank on Vickie Guerrero or on Triple H and Stephanie. And even before we saw where it eventually went, I thought, this is so stupid. Roman Reigns should not be fucking sneaking around backstage, putting shit in people's coffee. This guy is like 6'5". He's this big muscle-bound Samoan guy who looks awesome in the ring, who people totally are behind. What the fuck is he doing, putting shit in people's coffee backstage to trick his way into the match? It was so lame.
He takes his moment to play a boyhood prank. I mean, dude, you're a man. Be a man.
Right.
But this all has to do with Vickie's exit because she was supposed to leave WWE after WrestleMania, and I think that what I'm hearing in the reports is this is the beginning of the storyline of Vickie's exit to the WWE. So, and I will miss Vickie because I've always loved her. She's a Guerrera, and I thought that her excuse me gimmick was great. It got over with the fans. Every little screech of noise that came out of her mouth got on the fans' nerve, and I thought this woman has just natural heat. I've always really adored Vickie.
Yeah, she's because she's a heel, and she's not trying to get people to like her. She knows that it's her job for people to hate her guts, She doesn't go out and try to be funny or try to be cute or try to be clever. She just fucking gets on people's nerves. Okay, now next there was a Wyatt family promo, and nothing really happened. I mean, it was just Bray cutting a promo about how he's in the ladder match and he's going to win the title and he's going to get all the power and the influence. And Harper and Rowan have a tag title match at the pay-per-view against the Usos. Yeah. I'm hoping they win. I like the Usos.
But it's the change. It is the change you've been looking for. You've been asking for.
Yeah, Bray always cuts a good promo, man. I thought it was a good promo. I mean, it's a much better way to kill 5 minutes on the show than, the opening with Triple H talking about shit. They could have just had Michael Cole announce in 10 seconds. And anyway, so Sheamus comes out to interrupt the promo at the very end, and he says "fella," so because that's
His catchphrase.
Your favorite catchphrase, Doc.
Oh, I love
That's
it.
your favorite catchphrase. I hope he's going to say fella.
That wouldn't be right unless he says fella.
He should look down at his shirt. Like, I'm forgetting something. What am I supposed to? Oh, fella!
Yay!
So they have a match: Bray Wyatt versus Sheamus. Sheamus is the U.S. champion, by the way. This was non-title. And Rowan and Harper are outside, and then the Usos run in like right before the commercial break to kind of even the odds. And then when they come back from the break, relatively soon, there's a run in anyway. Harper and Rowan get involved, and it's a DQ. So that's our third consecutive DQ finish of the show. 3 matches so far, 3 DQ or 2 DQs and a count out. And then the Usos jump off of a ladder onto Harper and Rowan, and then Sheamus like throws the ladder out of the ring at them.
Yeah, that wasn't smooth. I think that they probably would have liked that a lot smoother than it was. And when I saw Sheamus set up that ladder for them, I knew what was coming, but I had doubts in my mind that this would look good, and I don't think it looked very good. But the match itself between Sheamus and Bray Wyatt, I thought was very aggressive. Things looked on spot real to me. I mean, that's the way I want to see a match, is that I believe that everything is happening the way I see it. They delivered that match, even though there was outside interference with the Usos and the other Wyatt family. I thoroughly enjoyed this match, and I probably consider it one of the best matches of the night.
Yeah, it was really crisp and really intense, which I thought was good, because with Sheamus and Bray, they both have those like styles where they're basically built around really intense, impactful moves. And I agree. I know people have kind of I know there's a couple commentators I read on the internet kind of took a shit on that match, but I thought it was a good match too. I didn't think there was anything really that wrong with it. The only thing I did notice, and this ties into the earlier match too, is that the Intercontinental Champion, Bad News Barrett, and the United States Champion, Sheamus, were both in matches on this show that were not for their titles. Their titles were not on the line, and they were matches against people who didn't care about their titles. So their titles had nothing to do with anything. And this is not really unusual. Like, this happens all the time, where one of the mid-card champions will be in a match, and it won't be for the title. It won't be against someone who cares about winning the title. The title might as well not even be there. And that's one of the reasons why nobody gives a shit about the mid-card titles, because nobody on the show gives a shit about it.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's like you have 2 prestigious titles with rich history, both the Intercontinental, which is my favorite, and the United States title, which is a lot of other real wrestling fans, like people who like like technical wrestling from the NWA days. That's their favorite belt. And I'm a WWF fan, so Intercontinental was mine. But yeah, it's like you do nothing to raise up the status of these 2 prestigious titles, and it's almost sickening. I mean, considering that Sheamus went into a match with disqualification, and Bad News Barrett went into a match with a countout, why the fuck not?
Yeah, exactly. At least make it seem like they care about the title.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, otherwise, why does he even have it? If Sheamus has a title that he never defends and that nobody even cares about, when's the last time somebody like walked up to Sheamus in the middle of an interview and got in his face and said, "My time is now, Sheamus. I'll challenge you to a match for the U.S. title." Yeah, nobody fucking cares.
They don't want that world title.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah, don't realize that a good world champion is because you were a great intermediate champion, and that is what builds those blocks to make you a better champion. A lot of people had won that mid-card championship and didn't do anything, but that is a good starting point. You have to be a good Intercontinental champion to be a great world champion.
Yeah, exactly. The Intercontinental title used to be like a stepping stone. Savage won it and then went on to win the world title. Bret Hart won it, then went on to win the world title. Shawn Michaels. I mean, Kevin Nash even. Mm-hmm. He was an Intercontinental champion before he was a world champion. And now it's just like you win the Intercontinental title, it's like, whatever.
It's a trinket.
Exactly.
we put it on the line when we ain't got nothing else to do.
Exactly. It's like, you know, when you work like for a company and they make you team leader, you know, but they don't give you a raise. You don't actually have a title.
And you constantly got to report back to the boss to make sure everything you want to do is okay.
Right. So you realize, like, wait a minute, this is kind of bullshit. Like, this isn't real. They just told me I was something to make me feel better. Okay, so now after this is when the Vickie Guerrero stuff really gets terrible, I think. She shows up with Triple H and Stephanie's coffee, finally. Like, I don't know why it took her so long to get the coffee to their office, and Triple H even makes a joke about it, like, you know, how long did it take her to get that coffee? Your coffee's going to be cold. She spills Triple H's coffee, and then has to leave and go get him another one, but Steph keeps her coffee and seems to really like it. And then there's another backstage segment a bit later where Vickie finally comes back with Triple H's new coffee. And by this time, Steph is in the bathroom. You can just hear her, like, in the bathroom getting sick, just throwing up. Triple H says, "Hey, Vickie, you should check on her." So Vickie opens the door, and then, like, with Steph still off camera in the bathroom, she projectile vomits.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, like something from, like, Saturday Night Live, like when they used to have
The Exorcist.
Like, yeah, like The Exorcist. If Reagan in The Exorcist was a coffee drinker, this what it would look like. And it's got, like, chunks of stuff in it, and it's, like, chocolate brown, and it's just disgusting. And Vickie gets just hosed down with it, like, twice. They do this projectile vomiting where, like, she's covered in it.
Yeah.
And Steph is sick, so Triple H takes her, and they're leaving, like, to go to the doctor, I guess. And Vickie is left in charge. And eventually it leads to Roman Reigns, like, catching Vickie backstage and saying, "Hey, as long as you're getting fired anyway for giving, for giving Triple H."
That should make you feel better.
Yeah, it's like, you know, you gave Triple H and Stephanie coffee that made her vomit all over the place, so you're totally getting fired next week. So as long as that's the case, why not put me in the Battle Royal? And Vickie says, okay, because why the fuck does she care, I guess. So that's how Roman Reigns gets his way into the Battle Royal.
My biggest thing about this angle was who in the fuck drinks their coffee through a straw?
Yeah, that's true.
This coffee is cold. I thought when I saw it, it had to be iced coffee.
Right. Yeah, because it was in, like, an iced tea cup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, okay, it's supposed to be hot coffee. Are you really sipping that through a straw, Triple H? Nah.
Yeah.
There goes away your manhood.
I'm not going to cheer for this guy. He drinks his coffee out of a straw.
Yeah, a comedian once said, "You cannot look cool and drink out of a straw." I forget who that was, but it's like, when you walk up to a woman in a bar and if you have a straw in your drink, you're like, "Hey, baby, how you doing?" He made that face. So you can't be cool drinking out of a straw.
No, especially if you're trying to get over as a badass wrestler. Well, you know, at least Roman Reigns didn't drink out of a straw. But, you know, I mean, this whole thing, like, it's bad enough that they have him do, like, this fucking, you know, they pull a rib, basically, to get into a match. But then to have, like, the Vickie getting thrown up on and walking around, like, covered in fake puke. And, I mean, the whole thing was just so stupid and lowbrow, and it wasn't even that funny. And it makes Roman Reigns look like a punk because he has to pull these shenanigans to get into a match when he should be able to just walk in and beat on a door and get in somebody's face or show that he's, like, a badass.
Yeah, kick that damn door in.
Fuck yeah!
Mm-hmm.
I remember...
Like, I beat your ass, Triple H, and you're going to give me what I want, or the repercussions are going to be severe against your ass.
Yeah, what's wrong with that? He was in the Shield. He beat up everybody on the show already anyway. Why doesn't he just go into the office, get right in Triple H's face, and say, "Put me in the match, or I'm going to kick your fucking ass."
Mm-hmm.
You have two choices: put me in the Battle Royal, or I'll beat the shit out of you right now.
Right.
What that makes him look tough. It makes Triple H look like a heel because he would have to back down and be the coward and say okay and come up with something to talk his way out of it. it works for both. Triple H looks like a heel, Roman Reigns looks like a badass, and nope, let's have him put some shit in her coffee instead. Like, what the? Who is this supposed to help?
Kevin Hart must have wrote that shit.
Oh my God. Yeah, Kevin, I got some shit to say about Kevin Hart too.
I do too, brother.
Oh my God. Okay, so now on my Hulu version, I missed the Heath Slater versus Rusev match.
Yeah, that was really quick. I mean, it was mostly promo.
Yeah, because Heath kind of turned babyface, sort of, didn't he? Didn't he come out and like defend America?
Yeah, he cut a babyface promo out there, and I thought that was kind of cool. It might be a new side of Heath Slater that we see. I mean, although he lost to Rusev in pretty quick fashion.
Yeah.
I thought that this was a new side that might be interesting. You know, they might actually give him a little bit more to do now that he's going to be out of 3MB. I think Heath is a great talker. As far as wrestling, I think he's okay. It's only because, for the most part, he's been jobbing for the last 2 years.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, I guess he's back to being a one-man band.
Yeah, the one-man rock band now. Yeah,
the one-man rock band. So, you know, I don't know. I like Heath.
I do too.
I like Heath. I hope that he doesn't. I mean, the fact that he didn't get cut with the rest of 3MB, I guess, is a good sign. Maybe they see some kind of use for him, but I don't know. We'll probably.
But they did put him against Rusev, and God damn it, I like Rusev. I mean, the heat on him is perfect. The man looks great. I love it when his hair dries and it starts to bush out like an old like Brady Bunch kind of thing, or Samoan. I love when his hair starts to dry. But and Lana, God damn, Lana. That's all I need to say.
Put that on a T-shirt. Doc will be wearing it.
Yeah, God damn,
next week.
Lana. God damn, Lana.
So, speaking of Kevin Hart, let's talk about how Kevin Hart was used in this show. He was the special guest star. He's there to push a movie, the sequel to a movie that I didn't see, so I don't care about the movie at all. But really, the only thing I really know about Kevin Hart is that he hosted Saturday Night Live last year, and I thought he did okay at that. I thought he was pretty funny doing that. But I've never seen his movie. I've never seen his stand-up. I have really no idea who he is, other than just he's a comedian who's made some movies lately. First he did a backstage interview with Renee Young that gets interrupted by Adam Rose and his posse, the Exotic Express, and he says to Kevin Hart that he should stop thinking like a man, because Kevin Hart's movie is Think Like a Man. Stop thinking like a man and start thinking like a rosebud. And Hart doesn't seem to be too amused by Adam Rose, even though Adam Rose is the babyface. Kevin Hart is just sort of like, oh, that's stupid. He just totally buries Adam Rose. And then he comes out and does commentary for the next match, which is a tag team match, Fandango and Layla versus Summer Rae and Adam Rose. And Kevin Hart is on guest commentary and is basically buries the whole match the whole time he's out there. Talks about, you know, how Fandango's tights look stupid and how he doesn't like Adam Rose and just kind of shits on the whole thing. And the announcers, Michael Cole and JBL and Jerry Lawler, even kind of sound like they're embarrassed for Kevin Hart to be out there seeing this. You know, like they're making excuses for it or talking about how silly they think it. Like it just totally makes the whole show look stupid, and makes everybody who's on the show feel like they think it's stupid. So why should we watch it?
Right.
The match doesn't last very long because Layla runs away and Summer Rae chases her, and Summer Rae and Layla are the people with the issue. So once they're gone, there's really no reason for the match to even exist, and it ends pretty shortly thereafter. Adam Rose hits Fandango with his finish and pins him. And then after the match, despite talking shit and burying Adam Rose the entire time he's been on the show tonight, Kevin Hart gets up and joins the Exotic Express in the ring and dances with Adam Rose and does like the mosh pit fall out of the ring for no reason at all.
I don't know what the hell he was doing, actually. He was shuffling his feet somewhere, which just proves that Kevin Hart, being a black man, can't even dance like a black man. I mean, good God, maybe it's because he's just like, you know, short, like just a couple inches taller than El Dorito, that he can't move his feet too far apart. But it was horrible. I mean, the
whole thing was horrible.
It was horrible. There is no need to put someone on Raw that you call a host just to bring them out for 2 segments. I mean,
yeah. Why is he even? What's he even doing there?
Yeah, and it's just so you can. It's just like WrestleMania. You pull a celebrity in because you want that recognition of being able to rub elbows with celebrities and what they're doing and give him self-promotion. But you aren't going to make any bank off of that, WWE. So what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah. Nobody's tuning into the show to see Kevin Hart. He's not really that big of a star.
I'm a white guy. Kevin Hart's on Raw. Do you think that's going to make me go think like a man too? I didn't see the first one. I'm not going to see the second one. Why? And I'm not being racist. It's an all-black movie. I'm not from that culture, so I don't get it. The comedy's good, yes, but it's the same reason I don't live in a black neighborhood. Wait. I do live in a black neighborhood. Never mind.
So you're just a racist, basically.
Oh no, I'm not a racist.
I'm kidding. I know you're not. I'm kidding. But yeah, I mean, it's if you're going to have a guy like Kevin Hart come out, and look, like you mentioned with the dancing thing, I mean, he is a small guy. He's not a very big guy. I mean, maybe have a heel like push him around or something and have a babyface come in and come to his defense. I mean, there's ways you can use him that would work with the show, but the way they had him, he talked about how stupid Adam Rose was. He came out to do commentary. He talked more about how stupid Adam Rose was, he made fun of Fandango's tights. He made fun of the whole dancing thing. Like, he buried the whole thing. It's like, so basically, this guy came on your show, got to promote his movie, and got to talk about how stupid your show is. I mean, what? And probably, honestly, is anybody going to go see Kevin Hart's movie because he was on Raw? I mean, does he really? Are the audiences really that? Is there that much crossover? Or, I don't even think it helped his movie any.
I'm still waiting for the next stand-up by Dave Chappelle. Honestly.
Yeah. Now, if they get Dave Chappelle to do a guest star on Raw and they let him just write his own shit, I would be all for that.
He'd be hanging out with RVD all night.
Has anybody seen Dave? We're supposed to do a live shot back here, like in 5 minutes. I haven't seen him all night.
It's down the hall where the smoke alarm's going off.
Just follow your nose. You'll find them. They're around.
Abba Zabba, you my only friend.
Yeah, so I didn't like the Kevin Hart thing. But then it was unnecessary and it was just stupid. And it's not like you need people telling us that Fandango is silly anyway. I mean, the gimmick itself is kind of goofy. You don't need like a celebrity going, "Oh, look at his pants! Look at what's with those bell bottoms?" Like,
he actually did try to combat Adam Rose though with his theme song, because you saw Fandango throwing his fingers up in the air trying to get the crowd to go da 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 da, and I was like, he did try.
Yeah. So next was the Battle Royal, and I didn't think up until the end, I didn't think the Battle Royal was that great. I mean, it wasn't bad. It was just shit was just kind of happening. The only thing notable about the first part of the Battle Royal was that Damian Sandow came out dressed like LeBron James and got eliminated right away. Like, everybody ganged up on him and threw him out. And the reasoning behind that was that the show was in Cleveland. And I guess they think that people who aren't basketball fans still give a shit that LeBron James left Cleveland for the Heat. Like, that was like 3 years ago. Does anybody really give a shit about that anymore? But so that happened. That was the weekly humiliation of Damian Sandow. But like you said earlier, Doc, at least it was an easy night.
Yeah.
You got to put on some basketball.
You do 3 seconds of work. That's a real easy night for your paycheck.
Yeah, so look at it that way. I guess maybe that's what. Maybe Damian doesn't care. Maybe he's like, oh sure, I'll get tossed first in a battle royal and take a shower, go back to the hotel. Awesome, thanks.
It's pretty hard when you're under contract to look like shit.
Yeah, which has basically been his job. But yeah, so now once things got whittled down to the last few guys, I thought it turned into a pretty decent little match. It ended up being the final two were Roman Reigns and Rusev, and Rusev looked good. Rusev looked good for the whole thing. Him and Roman Reigns both were tossing people left and right. They both were booked really strong in the Battle Royal, and it ended with Rusev being dropped onto the apron, and then Roman hits him with the Superman punch and knocks him off to win, which was an awesome finish. Would have been a little better if he hadn't eliminated someone else with the Superman punch already. But nonetheless, I thought it was really good. Really good final sequence. Roman Reigns looked like a fucking superstar.
Now, I actually picked 3 of the 4 of the. When it comes to battle royals in the business, it's always the last 4 in the ring because you have a lot more room in the ring to do things. Unlike when you have 20 men. And I picked 3 of the 4 final 4. I was right about that. Rusev itself, I would have not put in that battle royal because you're booking him as being dominant. And I think putting him in the Battle Royal, even though he got knocked over the ropes, which is possible, I thought it was a moment of weakness against Roman Reigns. He should have really just handled his business against Roman. He's handled his business against everybody else, and now you put him against someone that he can't do it against. And that actually scarred him a little bit. I thought it was a bad move. You should have never put Rusev in that Battle Royal.
Yeah, that's true, especially since he already had his big moment earlier with Heath. Yeah, I can see what you're saying there. And the other thing is, I mean, again, Roman Reigns is going to be a star. He looks great. People are totally into him. This would have been so much better if they hadn't done the fucking bullshit to get him there. Because it's like, what's frustrating is clearly they know what to do with him. They know how to make him look strong and how to make him look big and how to make him look impressive and how to get people to care about him. So when they do stupid shit like having him put shit in people's coffee to get into matches, that just it's like, well, okay, you know what to do with him, you know what you're supposed to do and what works. Why aren't you just doing that? Why do you have to throw this other bullshit in? It makes no sense at all.
Yeah, if you want shenanigans on your show, then bring back someone playing Doink the Clown.
Yeah, and do whatever the fuck with Doink you want because
for the most part, this is a wrestling show. We want to see people fighting, not fucking playing around.
Well, and I mean, it's not like, I mean, a comedy match every once in a while is fine, and not everything has to be like super serious. It's fine to like lighten things up and have some laughs every once in a while. But I mean, shit, the guy who's going to be your next main eventer should not be fucking pulling pranks on people backstage.
Right.
That's just my opinion.
Well, even John Cena did his little promo where it looked like he was about to lift up his middle finger, but didn't.
Yeah, yeah, and when Cena does that shit, that's like the worst thing. That I'm not an anti-Cena guy at all, but whenever he like cuts those fucking jokey promos and like makes fun of people, I mean, that is so stupid. He is so good at cutting like intense promos. Like he cut on Bray Wyatt before WrestleMania when he said he's going to change the way he's going to change the way he walks when he puts his foot in his ass. I mean, it was like he's so good at being intense and straight. Why does he do the fucking jokey shit? Anyway, so they cut out a good bit of this last hour for the Hulu version. I missed Cameron versus Paige, which Paige won by submission, and I also missed. And I actually went back and watched it a little bit later elsewhere on my own because everybody was talking about it. But they cut out the debut of Stardust on the Hulu version. The new tag team partner of Goldust, Stardust, which is basically Cody Rhodes in a Goldust gimmick. And they won their match versus Ryback. So Stardust pinned Curtis Axel.
Sure, because they're the only team out there. So the first and foremost thing you did was make a team who has been really making waves for the last couple weeks. You beat them. And I thought, all right, you're debuting a new guy, but you should have put him against a more preliminary team because Ryback was doing really good right now, and now you just made him look bad.
Yeah. Well, it was what really sucks is it's the sort of match. It would have been a perfect way to use 3MB if they still fucking work there. Yeah. I mean, that's why it's nice to have a lower card and a mid card. So and like you were saying earlier, even have some enhancement talent around. Just why? It was a meaningless match anyway. It was only there just to introduce Stardust. So why not throw a couple of guys from the local indie fed in there and just tell them to sell for a minute? I mean,
there were plenty of "Let's Go Axel" chants in that audience.
Yes, there were.
I'm hearing tons of "Let's Go Axel" chants, and I really thought that was cool.
Yeah, I think the fans are really starting to notice when guys are not getting their due, you know, like the way they get behind Ziggler, the way they chant for Sandow, the way they chanted for Axel, you know, you can tell when a guy deserves more. And the fans are starting to notice and are really starting to get behind those guys because I guess they figure, well, it worked with Daniel Bryan. Maybe if we remind the company that we like these guys too, that you can do more with them other than just have them go out and look like idiots. You know, maybe it'll help them out too. I don't know.
Well, you've read these reports about Ziggler that the reason that they're not pushing him to the top is because he's accident prone.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
And that's true. It is true.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, Triple H was accident prone too.
Sure, blew out his both knees.
Yeah. Didn't really seem to affect his push all that much.
Yeah, he came back bigger than ever.
Yeah, every single time.
Every time.
I seem to remember Dolph Ziggler cashed in his Money in the Bank and won the world title the night after WrestleMania and like blew the roof off the arena and then got injured, unfortunately, like a month later. And when he came back, he had absolutely nothing to do. There was nothing for him at all. No story, no program, no match, nothing.
No push.
No push at all. When Triple H came back from his knee injury in like 2002, he came back and won the fucking Royal Rumble. Now, I would say Triple H, throughout his career, has at least been as injury-prone as Dolph Ziggler has been so far. I mean, he's had back problems, he's had knee problems, he's been... Even back when he was in his prime, you know, he did have stretches where he was getting hurt a lot. Didn't seem to hurt his push all that much. I never heard that as an excuse. Like, well, we'd love to push Triple H, but you know, he's just hurt so much. We can't rely on him. But you know, all of a sudden, Dolph Ziggler, who you know gets reactions every time he goes to the ring, is like, well, yeah, we'd love to push Dolph. Really, we would, but it's just you know he's so injury prone. I don't know.
I think we just have to get used to this transition that's happening in the business of wrestling. I can only imagine what people felt back in the early '80s when Hulk Hogan and everyone burst on the scenes with their gimmicks and changed what Vince Sr. really didn't want in his business, which was entertainment.
Yeah,
like that.
That's true. Yeah.
So the business is constantly changing, and you have to learn to adapt to it. And sometimes it sucks, and sometimes it's great moves, and sometimes it really sucks. And I'm looking right back at you, TNA, because if you decide to put that six-sided ring back in your goddamn show, I will stop watching completely. I only watch now because there are a few people over there that I really do admire, and that's the only. And I'm hoping you put them on your show. That's the only reason I watch your damn show. But you change this six-sided ring, I don't even care who's on your fucking roster. I will stop watching.
You know, I read something online that somebody posted that actually brought up a really good point, which is pretty much all of the guys who worked the six-sided ring who were any good at it have been cut. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, AJ's not there anymore. Christopher Daniels isn't there anymore. Kazarian isn't there anymore. I mean, all of like the old X Division guys from about 5 or 10. You know, all the guys who had good matches in the six, they're all gone. Like, who the fuck wants to work in a six-sided ring if you're not like a fast-paced, high-flying wrestler? What the fuck is Bully Ray going to do with a fucking six-sided ring?
Yeah,
what difference does it make?
They're really prone for those high flyers, and if you had a dominant X Division, I would understand, but you don't. You actually squandered that.
Right. Yeah. Well, and it makes them look kind of stupid anyway, because right as the six-sided ring was starting to get over with people, and people were associating it with TNA, and like, oh, TNA is different. You know, they have a six-sided ring. They have the X Division. Hogan came in, and they got rid of it anyway, for no reason.
Yep.
You know, Hogan, I don't like that six-sided ring, brother. Get that, you know. And which is, I mean, I like a four-sided ring better too, but I mean, you know, like they dump it for no reason. They just get rid of it without even explaining why. And now they're like, yeah, maybe we'll bring it back. Well, like, why?
Yeah, if you made your decision and now you have to lie in it.
Yeah.
And honestly, it is more traditional. You want to compete with the rest of the wrestling business, then changing your ring to six sides is not the way you do it.
No, the ring doesn't matter. I mean, it matters having a show that people care to watch.
Yeah, your wrestlers have to be the stars, not your ring.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So let's talk about. We talked about Ryback's kind of getting the shaft here. What do you think of Stardust?
I like Stardust. I did. I've always been a big fan of Goldust, but I don't see why they didn't write a storyline where Goldust's persona was rubbing more off on Cody and changing him slowly. Instead, they went through a bullshit of finding him a new tag team partner for the last couple of weeks. It was a little silly, but for the most part, I thought it was pretty cool, except the way he carries himself, because he carries himself a little bit like Adam Rose, and I think he needs to stop that with throwing his hands out to the side. You gotta stop that. That's Adam Rose's thing. You don't want to be compared to him, and I just did it.
Yeah, right. And it is kind of an obvious comparison to make because you're right. They do both move like that in the ring. You know, I ended up liking it too. I thought when he first came out, I thought I was gonna hate it. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake! They just made him into another Goldust. Like that's their big idea for Cody Rhodes. This incredible.
Fuck another Rhodes.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure. Yeah, Dusty's probably like, God damn it, they did it to me again.
He wasn't though. He was very proud of his boys. He don't talk a lot on Twitter about his boys, but he was very proud of their accomplishment Monday night.
Yeah, and you know, Dusty. I mean, Dusty knows more about wrestling probably than anybody. I mean, he's been around forever, and he knows that all that matters is that you're getting over, and you're booked on the show, and you get to do your thing. I mean, people were like, when Dustin first started doing Goldust, they were like, oh shit, Dusty's gonna hate this, and Dusty himself even said he wasn't too sure about it until he saw what Dustin was doing with it and how he was really making it his own thing and doing really good with it. And then he was like, "Shit, yeah," you know. I ended up liking Stardust too. I thought I was gonna hate it, but because it just seems not very creative. Just like, oh fuck it, let's just make him Goldust too. Who fucking cares?
Here's the thing with Stardust though. He is getting compared to all those old school video game fans to Starman from Pro Wrestling from the old NES video game.
Oh yes, I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but you're right.
Yeah, I've seen posts on Twitter. My friend from WQCM, Sean Quinn, he had posted up a picture that he found that was just half and half. It was half picture of Starman from that NES game and then half a picture of Stardust from WWE. I'm like, yeah, I didn't actually make those comparisons, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah. I wonder if like somebody on the creative team remembers that game and was like, you know, fuck it, let's make Cody Starman.
Oh shit, I still play it today. I love that game.
Yeah, I used to play it all the time too. I haven't played it for a while, but I used to play it all the time too. So yeah, I ended up liking Stardust. And again, it's something to do with Cody Rhodes, who is an incredibly talented wrestler. It keeps the Rhodes brothers together. They're a good tag team. I like tag teams, you know, like it, and the crowd seemed to like it. You know, the crowd didn't take a shit on it. The crowd seemed to really get into it. So, you know, it works for me. Next was the main event, the stretcher match between John Cena and Kane. The main event, a lame gimmick match. The stretcher match is one of the dumbest gimmick matches I think that they could have.
It sure is.
And it's between Cena and Kane, who have worked together a lot in the past, but have no issue at all right now. They haven't had an issue with each other for months. So they're having a gimmick match against each other on Raw. And the match was what it was. I mean, Cena did an AA on Kane through the announce table. He puts him on the stretcher at one point, and the stretcher tips over, which was nice. So he gets another stretcher, because they had two stretchers that were out there all night, even though their stretcher match wasn't until last. They had the stretchers out there at the ring like all fucking night long. Nobody paid any attention to them.
Nobody used them.
Nobody used them for anything. They were just there. Just don't forget, there's a stretcher match tonight, I guess, was the idea. So he puts Kane on that one, on the second stretcher. Seth Rollins and Randy Orton run in and jump Cena. Orton hits him with the RKO, and Rollins is going to hit him with a chair. But then Dean Ambrose runs in and takes out Orton and Rollins, but then gets choke slammed by Kane. because you can't let the young guy look too good. You have to have Kane put him down, so he doesn't get too over. But anyway, so Cena comes back. He does the thing where he throws the steps at him, which he does like every time now, I guess. That's like part of his...
We complained about that already. It's like, you got to stop doing that shit. You can't do it every fucking match. Don't make your matches carbon copies, motherfucker.
Apparently, Cena or whoever is producing his matches disagrees. They're like, okay, John, I think we've laid out a pretty good match for you and Kane tonight. But one more thing. Can you work in the steps thing? Oh, sure, I can throw the steps at him. Great. I would really like if you could throw the steps at him in this match.
That's just now one of his official signature moves.
Yeah.
It'll be in next year's WWE 2K15.
Yes.
Steps at your opponent.
Oh, yeah. I can see that in the commercial. They'll have, like, video game Cena, like, chucking the steps at video game Randy Orton or something.
I mean, I guarantee you between now and then when that game comes out, you'll probably see it 100 more times.
Yeah. Because it's like his thing. It's like the "you can't see me" thing. He's done it every time he's had a match since he did it the first time. So anyway, he chucks the steps at Kane and he puts him back on the stretcher and he pushes him up because you have to push the stretcher across the finish line. That's the way you win in this stupid match. And he almost gets it across the finish line, and then Kane sits up and grabs him like he's going to choke him. So John picks him up, and he AAs him on the stretcher, which is padded, so it doesn't look like it hurts. And then he pushes him over the line, and John Cena wins, and that's the end of the show. So the world title ladder match at Money in the Bank, I guess, is now completely set. It's going to be Bray Wyatt, Sheamus, Alberto Del Rio, Cesaro, Randy Orton, Roman Reigns, and John Cena. They're in the world title ladder match at Money in the Bank. And they officially announced on Main Event this week that there is going to be a second ladder match for the Money in the Bank briefcase at the show.
Was that seven people? I mean,
seven people.
I think he listed 7 people. That just seems odd to have in a match like that. But it is Money in the Bank, so it's everyone for everyone, so it really doesn't matter the number. But they usually do an even number. That's odd that they have 7.
Yeah, I think they've done 7 before, but usually I think I remember them doing 7 one time where like the 7th guy was like a late entrant. They were like added one more guy right before the show, so it made it 7. So I don't know. Yeah, usually they would do I would kind of like to see it just be a 4-way, but 6 is fine too. 7. So that's the title match. And then Seth Rollins announced he's going to be in the Money in the Bank ladder match on Main Event this week. And I don't think they officially announced it, but I would imagine Dean Ambrose is going to be in that match too.
They should be. I'd rather see a Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins match singly.
Me too.
At the next pay-per-view. Or at least something where they come in contact with each other and build that match up, because I think that's going to be an awesome feud going on. I think that could be a really good story to tell.
Me too, because both guys, especially Dean, is just on fire. And I agree. I would like to see that as a SummerSlam match. I don't know if they can put it off that long, because they have Money in the Bank, and then there's the Battleground pay-per-view in July, and then SummerSlam's in August. I don't know if they can hold off until SummerSlam to have the first Dean versus Seth one-on-one match, but if they could possibly do that, that would be awesome. Because I agree that could be a really hot match. So yeah, I thought there were some bright spots, but overall, I didn't think it was that great of an episode of Raw. It's the first episode of Raw in a while that I feel like I just had a very negative reaction to, because usually I look on the bright side and I think, well, that was kind of, but I like this and I like this and I like this, but this just didn't seem like that great of an episode to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like I said, I fell asleep trying to rewatch it twice. And it's because you started off your show with 3 consecutive non-official wins.
Yeah.
And I thought that was overdone. You should never do that. To me, you should open up any show with a decisive win, something really hot, something really captivating, keep that audience, take that audience to the top, and then just do your best with every consecutive match to keep them there.
Yeah.
And it really did suck to have the first one as a disqualification, and then followed up with a count out, and then followed up with another disqualification. It's like, when are we going to actually? And I said this to my wife.
Yeah.
I said, when are we going to actually have an official 3 count?
Well, and the thing is, like, they had matches that had clean finishes on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why not? Why put that fucking mixed tag team match on so late? Why not put that on like as the second match to break up the third match if you want to keep the Dean Ambrose Seth Rollins thing kind of together, because they were sort of they were very closely connected, But you have matches booked with clean finishes already. Put one of those on early so it doesn't feel like we're just getting DQ after DQ after DQ.
You had to put Rusev and Slater out there first. Just a nice quick match and a lot of heat, one way or the other, whether they're hyped or just fucking pissed off. Just get their moods up there, and I think Rusev and Lana can do that. So that's probably who I would have thrown out there first.
Yeah, because
then I wouldn't have felt so bad when I saw all these guys who already wrestled for the night in the Battle Royal.
Yeah. But so yeah, that's that. Who do you? We haven't. I mean, obviously we won't do like official predictions until we get to almost to the Money in the Bank show. But who would you guess, if you had to guess at this point with the way it's been booked so far? Who would you guess was going to win the title at the pay-per-view?
Well, the rumors are saying that they might have a heel winning the match, and if I had to pick somebody, God, it is hard because there are two guys that I would love. But I think one of them is a little too preliminary. As much as I'd like to see Bray Wyatt eventually work his way up to the world title, I think he can do his thing and get his heat without it. Cesaro, they've been pushing as that Superman. I think with Paul Heyman predicting, just like he did, he said he gave a spoiler to the fans out there when he said that Brock Lesnar would defeat the streak, and so he did. And so this is almost a spoiler saying Cesaro is going to win the Money in the Bank. I would like to see that. Cesaro has no affiliation with any other belts except for that Andre the Giant Memorial Tournament, holding that trophy. So I think it would be good, and it would be an excellent fucking matchup when Daniel Bryan comes back.
Oh, absolutely. Cesaro versus Bryan is like one of those that I'm kind of hoping is going to happen once Bryan comes back. If hopefully he does get back and is able to get healthy again. Yeah, I think Cesaro would be good. I mean, I know it's not going to be Sheamus. I know it's not going to be Alberto. I hope it's not going to be Orton.
Or Cena.
Or Cena, yeah. I mean, so I don't know. But, I've heard some people have speculated that they might think about pulling the trigger on Roman Reigns, too. I mean, if they decide
I think it's a little too early. I think it's a little too early.
I think so.
You got to do it right. And Cesaro is prime.
Oh, I agree. And, Cesaro puts him in a good spot for SummerSlam, because I feel like, if you want to have a big match in the main event of SummerSlam, it should be somebody challenging a heel champion. I just think that works better for big matches, to have a babyface challenging a heel champion.
Oh yeah, the underdog gimmick always works.
Yeah, and it's easy.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to fuck up, and that's where they should be going at this point. Because I think we saw with like the coffee drama in this show, like when they try too hard, they tend to fuck shit up. Just keep it simple.
There was a moment. Did you notice this when Triple H actually knocked that coffee out of Vickie's hand? He was lost for words. He stumbled over his lines and had no idea what the fuck to say. Notice that?
Oh well,
I picked it up. I'm like, oh, dead air, Triple H, dead air. Come on.
But Triple H is such a good talker. He was on the WWE.com greatest talkers list. I don't understand.
This is when writers can't come up with anything for you, and then on your side you think you could do better than the writers. Triple H, yeah. I think that whole moment you really actually were the one that made it look bad.
Yeah. Well, they could always fire somebody else though. So
sure.
They could always fire somebody else.
Vickie, you're fired because you made me look bad. You made me stumble over my lines, Vickie. Steph, you're fired.
You didn't spill that coffee the right way.
Mm.
Okay, so let's talk about our legend of the week, because you went a little bit outside the box for this one, but this is an awesome legend of the week, Doc. So tell the people about who you picked for our legend this week.
This week's legend, and I have been waiting for a long time, and it has slipped my mind a few times to actually bring this up, but it is one of my favorite moments in wrestling history. And it wasn't because it happened when, it wasn't because I observed it when it happened. It's because I found out about it later in life, and I thought, this is priceless. And I am talking none other than Mr. Hollywood star himself, Andy Kaufman. I absolutely adored Andy Kaufman. And it's not from his Laka gimmick on Saturday on Taxi, or his gimmicks on Friday Night Special, or Friday Night Live, or Saturday Night Live, the things he'd done on there. I tend to think of myself as kind of an Andy Kaufman type of comedian. When I make funny, it doesn't really matter to me if you got it, if you laugh at it. It's because I found it funny. And I think Andy Kaufman was like that too. He found things funny, and that's why he did the things he did, like reading The Great Gatsby in front of a live audience instead of telling jokes. Classic, classic fucking shit. But he always had a love for professional wrestling. He liked the theatrics of professional wrestling, the nature of the sport, and he actually loved to be part of hoaxes. And Kaufman was great at this. So he decided on his own that he would dub himself the intergender wrestling champion, and he would go around and wrestle women to beat him, and he would offer them $1,000 if they could beat him, and they couldn't, because no woman can beat a man, and wrestling was a man's sport. And I thought this was a pretty cool gimmick for Andy Kaufman. He actually tried to get a hold of Vince Sr. at the time, because he wanted to bring that gimmick to the WWF. Vince did not want any part of it. He did not want that type of entertainment in his wrestling business, which just shows you how far we've come. But Vince Sr. did not want that. But unfortunately, fortunately, Kaufman actually was pretty good friends with Bill Apter, if you know who he is. And Bill, of course, has been in the wrestling business for a long time. He writes for Pro Wrestling Illustrated, one of my favorite magazines out there. And he was pretty good friends with Jerry Lawler up in the Memphis area. So he got a hold of Jerry Lawler and asked, if this would be something he'd be interested in. And Jerry Lawler thought it was pretty cool. So, of course, Kaufman made his way down to Memphis Wrestling, where he did his intergender wrestling thing. And Kaufman, or Lawler, got up in his face, of course, as we all know, and said, you've been spending all this time wrestling women, and sure, you can beat a woman, but if you want to be part of a real wrestling, if you want to consider yourself a wrestler and be a real man, what you need to do is step in the ring with a real man, and I'm a real man, so why don't you wrestle me? And Kaufman, did his thing, ignoring it for a while, and he had different little managers, like Jimmy Hart actually managed him down there in Memphis.
Yeah.
But eventually they did have their match. Kaufman agreed to have the match because, he's from Hollywood. He was the smart one from Hollywood, and he can beat any little, redneck wrestler guy out there. He would actually poke fun and make fun of Southerners. It was classic. He was really good at what he did in being a protagonist. But Lawler got a hold of him and pile drived him pretty hardcore, and at that time pile drivers were not legal, so Lawler got disqualified from that match, but Kaufman suffered an injury, and it was a legitimate injury, but it wasn't as bad as he led on that it was, because he wore a neck brace for several years and said, claimed that his injury was worse than originally speculated, but it wasn't. He did have a legitimate injury, but it wasn't as bad as everybody thought. But it was a great moment in history. They went on the David Letterman show and did their gimmick where Kaufman ran his mouth and Lawler got up and smacked the shit out of him, knocked him out of his chair. It was just one of those moments to me in wrestling that that it was the first time that a celebrity crossed those borders to me and made headway in the business. And I think it really changed the business and the way people looked at it as the way they want to, and I think WWE, honestly, I think WWF looked at this and said, when they got WrestleMania, we need to get celebrities in here because celebrities work. And Kaufman is one of those guys. He may not have been a trained professional wrestler. He may not have spent his career as a professional wrestler. But in my opinion, he got to go against one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, Jerry the King Lawler. He told a great story in doing so, and he deserves to be on our Legends list. Andy Kaufman, I love you, man. I miss you terribly. And if you haven't, give me a second. I recommend this. Where I put it. If you have not read it yet, you need to read Andy Kaufman Revealed, The Best Friend Tells All by Bob Zmuda. Bob Zmuda actually was Andy Kaufman's best friend. He tells a lot about Andy Kaufman's life because Andy Kaufman wasn't outspoken. He didn't tell you so much. He did not let you in. And I love that. And matter of fact, the whole angle between him and Lawler was kept secret for so long that it never really was revealed until Jim Carrey wanted to make Man on the Moon back in, I think, '95. And then when the interviews came out, that's when this whole thing was revealed because they were going to play it out on the movies, in the movie that it was staged. And I thought that was horrible. As much as I love Man on the Moon and the fact that they told Andy Kaufman's life story, and Jim Carrey, hats off to you, brother. You did a great fucking job doing it. I thought that was the one sour point that you let loose in the film was to actually point out that whole thing was a work gimmick. And but I want to say that Andy Kaufman lived a pretty good life. He did a lot of great comedy. He will forever be known in my book as a comedic legend. And someone who got into a business that I love and was successful. So that is my report on the Legend of the Week. Andy Kaufman, brother, I miss you.
I'm glad that you mentioned that Great Gatsby joke because that Great Gatsby bit is one of my favorite comedy bits ever. That is just so funny because he just reads from the book, and then when the people in the audience would get sick of it and they would start to like shout stuff or yell shit at him, he would say, "Okay, I'll give you a choice. I can either keep reading the book or I can play a record. Which do you want?" And they would go, the record, because they're so sick of just hearing him read this book. So he says, "Okay, I'll play the record." and he puts on the record, and the record is him reading the book, picking up exactly where he left off when he stopped. I mean, it was just so funny. Oh my God! But yeah, him and his stuff in Memphis with Lawler. I mean, even if you don't like Andy Kaufman or you're not a fan of his comedy and you're just a wrestling fan, I mean, I kind of think that they should teach booking at wrestling schools. I think part of what you learn when you go to wrestling school should be just the basics of wrestling booking, because a lot of indie guys end up being promoters. They wrestle for a little while, they save some money, they start their own indie company, and it's nice to have the basics of booking. And man, you could show that whole Lawler versus Kaufman feud from Memphis and that could be the class right there, because I mean it's got everything that you want from an old school pro wrestling feud. It's got the big angle that like incites the whole thing, with a couple of big angles actually, with Lawler pile driving him and him going to the hospital, and then the big blow up on David Letterman. I mean, they worked for like a year off of that. That angle on David Letterman, that Memphis feud between Lawler and Kaufman that went on for a year. And I mean, Kaufman turned babyface at one point and offered Lawler like something like $10,000 to be his tag team partner.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because he was like enemies with Jimmy Hart. Like Jimmy Hart turned on him, and then he turned on Lawler again. Like it was all revealed to be just a ruse.
Yeah,
it was so perfect. It was such a perfect example of how you can book like a long-running wrestling feud and have twists and turns and have it keep it fresh and keep changing it up so that it keeps people's interest, but then also knowing when it's time to blow it off and have it finished and move on to the next thing. And I mean, Jerry Lawler, like you said, is one of the greatest of all time, one of the great talkers ever, one of the great ring psychologists, just one of the, and him and Andy Kaufman were just perfect for each other. And if anyone out there runs a wrestling YouTube, find the video of that Lawler versus Kaufman Memphis feud from like 1982 or 1983, whenever it was. And man, that's the basics of what you need to know right there, because it was so well done.
Well, better yet, if you're interested in this whole storyline, what you need to do is find a copy of I Am Hollywood, which is by Andy Kaufman. Every now and again, Comedy Central will play this, but it will tell you the entire story of his time in Memphis, his storyline, and it's really good. Another great movie, if you haven't seen it, it's hard to get a hold of, is My Breakfast with Blassie. Andy Kaufman is in that too. So those are two things. If you haven't read this book, which isn't by Andy Kaufman, but Bob Samuda, his best friend. Those are great films, to check out. I Am Hollywood stars Andy Kaufman, and My Breakfast with Blassie. Freddie Blassie, you pencil neck geek, if you're not paying attention.
Yeah, he was. Kaufman was just incredible, and the fact that he was like involved in his awesome wrestling angle, in addition to being a great comedian and everything, is just, he's one of my favorite guys. So we have a few minutes here before we usually wrap up. Let me see what we have going on here in the comments in the YouTube chat.
Sure.
See what we have, what you find folks who are watching us have to say.
It don't matter what you're saying.
Actually, Lamortez Abyss said, did you notice that Ambrose's entrance music sounded kind of like Steve Austin's?
No, I didn't.
A little bit. It kind of did. I think they...
Here's the one thing I did notice about that match.
Yeah.
Ambrose and who did he wrestle again? Ambrose and Barrett.
Yeah.
You guys need to hide your talking a little bit better, because I could clearly see you're communicating with each other. That's about the only thing I noticed, besides it being a great match.
Yeah. That would be. Did you ever watch Botchamania?
I've seen a few.
Yeah, there's a regular segment on Botchamania that he does called "Everyone Talks Too Much," where when you can catch guys in the ring calling spots, like that'll be for that segment, and that might be something for that in an episode of Botchamania.
Well, I do this with my best friend in the wrestling business, the guy who actually trained me in this wrestling business, Sexy Shade Shadows. I tell him constantly, like, you think the back road heard you talking to your opponent? Because I certainly heard you in the back locker room. He talks way too loud.
Yeah, but I know, because I remember when we first started talking about wrestling, one of the things you told me that I hadn't really thought about before, just as a fan, was like, communicate with your opponent as much as you can, so that you have a smooth match and you all know, both of you know where the other is going. But yeah, you can't be like, you can't be just talking to him like we're talking to each other right now. I mean,
yeah, wrestlers, I recommend this. If you're going to be a professional wrestler, you can learn the walk and wrestle angle if you like. I don't recommend that. I recommend really going backstage, practicing with your opponent everything you do, and if something happens on that ring, then you need to be able to do that walk and wrestle thing. You need to be able to know that so you can improvise. But for the most part, comfortability comes with knowing your match before you actually walked out there.
Yeah. Did you ever hear the story about when Ken Shamrock first came in and they put him with Bret Hart to sort of train him to be a professional wrestler after coming out of UFC, and he and Bret kind of worked together a little bit, and they were together on house shows for a while, and Bret apparently as a rib on Ken told him to make sure to call his spots really loud. So like there was the first few weeks of Ken Shamrock in the WWE, like whenever he would call a spot in the ring, like you could hear everything he was saying because Bret had told him that's how you're supposed to do it. Like what an asshole.
Yeah. Yeah, but for the most part, Dean and Barrett was great. I didn't notice that they were using like Austin music, but I did notice, the few hand motions where his mouth was running, and in the headlock where he was clearly talking to Bad News Barrett, and it's like, you got to stop that. It's too noticeable.
Yeah. Yeah, let me see what else we have in the comments here. Yeah, someone else mentioned about the lowbrow shit with like Vickie getting thrown up on. L-Tel 1990 said, I have a feeling Vince had a hand in this. You get the feeling that Vince does seem kind of preoccupied with puking, doesn't it? I mean, he gave Darren Drozdov the puke gimmick back in the day.
Dropping shit all over people.
Yeah. Like, what is it with Vince and potty humor? He's like 70 years old. Why is it still so funny to him to have people...
he's only doing what's familiar. I mean, just ask his depends.
Vince, why are you so preoccupied with shit humor? Depends. Yeah, so let's get ready to wrap up. Sure. But before we do, I know you have a really good show to recommend that people can look up and watch on the WWE Network. If you're looking for something, if you're a network subscriber and you're just looking for something to watch from the archive, maybe you just want to have some wrestling to watch for a few hours and you're not sure what to check out, we each have our own idea for what you could watch this week. And Doc, why don't you tell us what you have first there?
Well, if I was to ask you to watch one pay-per-view show on the WWE Network, I would have to recommend the 1997 very first ECW pay-per-view called Barely Legal. Happened on April 13th of 1997, like I said. They actually it wasn't bad. They actually made $66,000 from this pay-per-view for a promotion that really wasn't mainstream. So that wasn't a bad night for them. But the matches actually were really good. Although hardcore, I'm not a huge hardcore fan. I definitely at that time, I didn't know the difference. So, so I really wanted to see this. It was our first pay-per-view. You got an opening match with the Eliminators. That's John Kronos and then Perry Saturn. And they faced off against the Dudley Boys. Y'all remember the Dudley Boys when they were huge and controversial in ECW. So, they had Bubba Ray, and Devon, and of course Joel Gertner was out there, and Sign Guy Dudley was out there, the whole Dudley crew. That was cool. That was the first match. Second match, you'll get to see Rob Van Dam, Mr. RVD himself. Of course, he's probably running around with Bill Apter at the time, face off against Lance Storm. Now that, right there, is probably the match of the night. Rob Van Dam versus Lance Storm. Gotta recommend it. If you haven't seen that match, check it out. Third match of the night was the Great Suzuki and Gran Hamada and Masato Yakashuji. Let me see if I can say it. Yakashuji. I can't say it, but and I apologize. I don't mean no disrespect to you. That was disrespectful, though. But those two guys faced off against the Japan version of the BWO, which was Taka Michinoku, Terry Boy, and Dick Togo. That was a pretty good match, and I think that was more for comic relief. I mean, it was a pretty good hardcore, high-flying match, but a little comedy relief in there, too. And it was all Japanese wrestling, so thumbs up there. Fourth match, you have Shane Douglas. Y'all remember the franchise. I will be working with him this Sunday. And he was with Francine. He faced off against Pitbull 2. I think the Pitbull 1 was injured at the time. He was wearing some kind of neck brace at the pay-per-view, and Shane actually grabbed a hold of that neck brace and was yanking him around by it. So good match there. The fifth match of the night would be Taz with Bill Apter, that whistle-blowing cocksucker that drove me nuts. But I loved him. He had worse teeth than me. That's why I liked him. At the time. I got great teeth now. But yeah, Taz actually faced off against Sabu, which you got your high flying, homicidal, genocidal maniac against the human suplex machine. So great match there. In the sixth match, you have a triple threat match. Now this is where I thought the pay-per-view got great, because you have Terry Funk, just an old fart in the wrestling business, but tough as fucking nails. He went in that ring against the Sandman, who has the longest run-in wrestling history, and BWO's member Stevie Richards, and he actually had the Blue Meanie and Hollywood Nova with him at the time. This actually was a match to determine the #1 contender for Raven's ECW World Championship. And I don't want to give you too many spoilers, but I have to tell you the 7th match, which was for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship. And it was a blood fest, let me tell you, people. There is a lot of blood in this match, so it's not for the squeamish. But my boy, who helped me out of the ring one time, Terry Funk, faces off against the champion, Raven. Great matchup, and if you need to check anything out for this week, check out ECW's very first pay-per-view, 1997's Barely Legal.
That is a really good show. Yeah, I kind of feel the same way about ECW that you do. Like I'm not generally like a huge hardcore wrestling fan, but that was a really good show, and I agree. That's a really good recommendation. My recommendation, I'm still trying to look for sort of lesser known, or not necessarily lesser known, but maybe a little bit older ladder matches that people can watch, given that Money in the Bank is coming up. And my pick this week is SummerSlam 1998. Because that's the show that had a ladder match as one of the featured matches between Triple H and The Rock for The Rock's Intercontinental Championship. And at the time, Triple H was a babyface, leading Degeneration X with X-Pac and the New Age Outlaws, and Rock was still a heel as the Intercontinental Champion. And this was sort of the match that kind of made these guys. I mean, they were both on their way to being main eventers anyway, especially The Rock. But this was the match that really solidified that both of these guys have what it takes to be a main eventer. It was a really good ladder match. Triple H ended up winning and hurting his knee. We talk about how injury-prone Dolph Ziggler is. Triple H in his first really super big match against The Rock at SummerSlam. He won the match. It was a good match, but he hurt his knee and was actually off TV for like a month. Maybe not quite a month, but a few weeks rehabbing the knee. But a really good match, really good ladder match, and a good sort of review of yet another great ladder match that you can watch before you watch Money in the Bank at the end of the month. And this is also the Highway to Hell show, where the main event was Steve Austin versus The Undertaker in a babyface versus babyface match for the WWE title. And the match itself is pretty good. It's not like a great match, but it's not bad. And I just remember that build being really fun, the build up between Austin and Taker both being good guys facing off against each other. And eventually, the next couple of months, it just went on a little too long, because then Austin ended up wrestling Kane, and then Kane and The Undertaker. Like, it seemed like that just stretched on forever. But the SummerSlam match between Austin and Taker was a pretty fun match, and it was a good show overall. So that's my recommendation if you're going to watch a show on the network this week. Recommended mostly for the ladder match, but overall a pretty good show. I think that's the match. That's the show where Jeff Jarrett cut his hair too. So he lost a hair versus hair match to X-Pac, and he had to cut his hair. So anyway, that's it for this week, everybody. We're going to be back next week to do this all over again. We'll keep talking about the build-up to Money in the Bank. By this time next week, we'll probably know a few more of the guys that are going to be in the Money in the Bank match at Money in the Bank, as opposed to the title match. So we'll have that to talk about. And who knows what else will happen. We forgot to mention huge news. Pat Patterson.
Oh yeah, Legends House.
Pat Patterson is gay.
Oh my God, is he?
Who knew? Oh my God.
I didn't know that.
Pat Patterson is gay. So that's the big news.
This Thursday they have a reunion show on the tomorrow they'll have a reunion Legends House show. So, and of course, as always, I think it's going to be a huge work. But whatever, I'll watch it. It's got a lot of legends on it.
Do you really think that Legends House was a work, Doc? That was totally real. It was totally real. All of that stuff was real.
Yeah, well, it's about as real as Total Divas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, if you don't like Andy Kaufman, then I would definitely check out Tony Clifton, because Tony Clifton is also an awesome performer, great friend of Andy Kaufman. So check him out. Check him out, you son of a bitch. He's a great performer. Tony Clifton.
Yeah, man. Tony Clifton, and he still performs every once in a while.
Yes, he does.
So that's it, everybody. Doc, thank you as always. I'll see you next week.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And I'll see you guys next week, too. Thanks for watching. Take care, everybody.
Whoop, whoop. Eat more bacon, people.